right, good morning, folks. It is Friday, April 22nd. Welcome to First Things First, Simply Cyber's daily morning cybersecurity threat briefing. I'm your host, Gerald Auger, and over the next 30 minutes, I will be delivering the top cybersecurity news of the day and providing what I would call expert analysis on each of these stories. I'll leave it to you to decide what it means to you as a practitioner, or if you're looking to break in the industry. There is value here for all of us. Shout out and thanks to this stream's sponsor, Barricade Cyber Solutions. Cyber criminals have stolen your company's data and derailed your business operations. And it's a Friday, so that totally sucks. Barricade Cyber Solutions will help you resolve this ransomware attack and get your business back on track. So if you're dealing with a really nasty bit of cyber attacks, cyber incidents, you don't have the capacity or the staff to handle it, consider calling Eric Taylor and the gang over at Barricade Cyber Solutions. It's what they do. I want to remind you, if you hold professional certifications that require CPEs, some people call them CEUs. I think that might be a cultural difference. Maybe they do it in Europe. I don't know. But if you have to do continuing education for maintaining your cert, consider this. First Things First is worth half a CPE per episode. That's 2.5 every week, about 10 a month. So in, 4 months, you can get 40 CPEs, which is plenty, right? So be sure to document literally the easiest, and I would argue the most enjoyable way to earn your CPEs. If you are live, love it. I see 40 of you in here right now. Absolute banger. Good morning. And thank you for, giving me the grace to push this thing forward 1 hour because I had to. If you're watching on replay, lucky you. You didn't get pushed an hour for you anyways because you're watching on replay. So if you want, stay here, watch the pleasantries, say hi to people, drop a link in or drop a comment in chat so you can get credit for being here for your CPEs. But feel free to scrub where the timer in the corner gets to 0 because that's when we're going to start the news, right? But if you want to be into the pleasantries, if you're here live with us right now, well, then hang out and chill because for the next 2 minutes, I'll be welcoming folks into stream. What's up, BSEC? Good to see you. Hey, Pamela. Always nice. Nick Barker. Oh, Nick Barker got up early, and unfortunately, we had to push an hour. Yeah, I had a personal matter to attend to this morning that basically superseded First Things First. So I'm glad that we were able to do it. I do want to give a shout out. Eric Taylor did reach out to me and offered to pinch hit for First Things First. So no matter what, even if I have personal conflicts and stuff like that, First Things First will always continue on. Okay. Yeah, BSEC, no audio issues. I am streaming the chill hop background noise for Restream right now, so we'll give it a shot. I went through all the different audio options, and chill hop seems to be the best one, so we're going to roll with that. Thanks, Anna Lynn. Thanks, Crowbar. Good to see you in the UK. Anthony Singleton, my man. Hope you're doing well. It wasn't explosive diarrhea. No, I assure you. It was just an appointment that I had to run out and do. Okay, absolutely, guys. TGIF, we made it to Friday. I hope you guys caught the stream last night. Simply Cyber Live hosted Rob Lee of Dragos, and it was a really interesting conversation, very enlightening as to, the world of industrial control system security, the mindset that you really need to have if you're going to be operating in that space. It's very different than the space of IT and traditional information security. Hey, Eula Chua, I saw you live last night. Definitely appreciate you being there. Hey, Carrie. Hey, Carrie, good to see you. Hey, Saba. It was gold. Thanks, Nick. I thought Rob was an awesome guest. I look forward to having him back on for 2.0. Also, you guys will be happy to know I confirmed that the audio sounders worked before I went live today, so I'm not going to nuke our audio by doing sound effects during the show.
Straight cash, homie.
Straight cash, homie. Thanks, Randy Moss. All right. Oh, that's awesome. An employee from Dragos was on the local news. All right, guys, it looks like we have hit our timer. So to keep true to our word, especially for those watching on replay, let's get the show started. If you're interested in playing along, you can check out the stories at cybersecurity headlines section of CISOseries.com. David Spark and his gang, they do fantastic work. I always love to give a shout out to them because of the work that they do, we are able to do First Things First. And I genuinely appreciate that. So sit back, relax, and let's get into the news.
cybersecurity headlines.
It's Friday, April 22nd, 2022. Critical chipset bugs open millions of Android devices to remote spying. 3 security vulnerabilities have been disclosed in the audio decoders of Qualcomm and MediaTek chips that, if left unresolved, could allow an adversary to remotely gain access to media and audio conversations from affected mobile devices. According to Israeli cybersecurity company Check Point, the issues could be used as a launchpad to carry out remote code execution attacks simply by sending a specially crafted audio file. The vulnerabilities are rooted in an audio coding format originally developed and open-sourced by Apple in 2011. Called the Apple Lossless Audio Codec, ALAC, or Apple Lossless, the audio codec format is used for lossless data compression of digital music.
Wow. Okay, so a whole bunch of things here. Okay, so if you're running Android or you have Android users in your environment, make them aware of this. Again, I've said this on the stream multiple times. If you're running some kind of offshoot version of an Android operating system, and what do I mean by that? So if you're running like a Samsung phone or a Google phone, you have a really close version of the root operating system. If you're running kind of like a Fuzzy Wizzy, I just made that up, but a Fuzzy Wizzy version of a phone that runs Android, you may have kind of a forked version of the Android operating system, which means that you may have noticed that like you're on an older operating system and you can't upgrade. It's because the vendor has put in their own kind of customizations and stuff, which will break if they upgrade the operating system, so they don't support it anymore. Having said all that, if you can update and you can patch for these things, I strongly encourage that you do it. Another thing that's worth pointing out is that they do mention that there is a proof of concept exploit out, which increases the threat score or the vulnerability score of how scary this particular thing is. And the final thing, and this is more for academic purposes and to educate. One thing that people really should know, right? So this is a bug with the audio chipset, right? The audio decoders of Qualcomm. It doesn't mean that this is exclusive of hacking the audio feeds and stuff like that, right? It says in the story that this can lead to remote code execution. Just because it's the audio thing doesn't mean it's an audio only problem. We saw this famously maybe 5-10 years ago with a font library and the way that Windows operating system not parses, but I guess kind of processes different fonts, and you were able to attack the way that font processor worked to basically take over the machine. So when you hear things like, oh, it's a font vulnerability or it's an audio decoding vulnerability, don't restrict yourself to thinking that that's the scope of the problem. It's just software that's running on an operating system that can be exploited, right? So that's how you have to think about it.
Five Eyes alert warns of Russian threats targeting critical infrastructure. The Five Eyes Alliance, the United States, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, has issued an alert giving a comprehensive overview of Russian state-sponsored and cybercriminal threats to critical infrastructure. The alert also includes remediation guidance, which CISOs will find of particular import. It lists specific Russian state actors that have pledged to conduct cyber operations against entities that are providing support to Ukraine. The 4 areas of immediate concern are essentially cybersecurity 101, but it remains necessary to repeat these given that they are always significant weak points in many organizations. These refer to prioritizing patching of known exploited vulnerabilities, enforcing multi-factor authentication, monitoring remote desktop protocol, and providing end-user awareness and training. The full alert is available on the CISA website and is named Alert AA22-110A.
All right. So, okay, a bunch going on here, right? So the United States, through CISA and the Shields Up initiative that's going on right now, has recently noted that there is a higher risk to critical infrastructure, industrial control systems, especially in the United States. If this is even remotely interesting to you, you need to watch the Simply Cyber Live with Rob Lee from yesterday. because right near the end, you can scrub to the end if you don't want to invest the hour. Right near the end, Joel Belton, I think, had asked a question around activity, Russian kind of activity of industrial control systems and things lighting up and stuff like that. And Rob answered the question, and it was very interesting because he talked about how, even before the conflict started ramping up, we saw things start probing, like a lot of probing going on, a lot of things getting kind of activated, turned on. Very interesting. So, Jen Easterly puts that this is operating under the Russian threat actor playbook right here. So you think of TTPs, we're very familiar with tactics and approaches to different things. So we do have that in our wheelhouse, if you will, to help protect. But guys, basically they're just saying there's a higher risk that your critical infrastructure systems, your ICS, could get compromised, could get attacked. You really shouldn't have been waiting for this notification to do something about your environment. Again, if you're responsible, Rob Lee pointed it out, go bring a 6-pack of beer and some donuts or pizza or coffee or whatever to your OT engineers and talk to them about what they need to help them do their job, and explain to them what you need and this shields up thing and how you guys can coordinate and collaborate in order to reduce the risk, right? Definitely remote access type things you want to be careful with, and just multi-factor if possible. I know it's not always possible, but I really don't want to be sharing a first things first story at any point in our life talking about a critical infrastructure in any country, but especially the United States, being attacked and brought down. You may also want to check out Pipe Dream. Pipe Dream is a recent piece of very targeted, very purposely developed malware for industrial control systems, which is very uncommon, right? Usually threat actors just take advantage of the industrial control system functionality to break it. Pipe Dream was custom built, and Dragos actually did a really nice white paper write-up on it. So go check that out if you're interested in it.
Vulnerable to undetectable backdoors. Researchers from UC Berkeley, MIT, and the Institute for Advanced Study in the United States have devised techniques to implant undetectable backdoors in machine learning models. Their work suggests ML models developed by third parties fundamentally cannot be trusted. Their paper, which is currently being reviewed, explains how a malicious individual creating a machine learning classifier, that's an algorithm that classifies data into categories such as spam or not spam, can subvert the classifier in a way that's not evident. The paper explains, quote, importantly, without the appropriate backdoor key, the mechanism is hidden and cannot be detected by any computationally bounded observer, end quote.
Very cool.
Cisco.
Okay, so check this out. They are using the term backdoor here. Based on what I heard, this is not what a backdoor is. This is not, like, I'm almost annoyed that they use the term backdoor. A backdoor, in the classic sense, in the way that everybody in our industry uses it, is a persistent mechanism or some type of alternative access mechanism that is unknown by most people and can be accessed by people with privilege, right? So think of Apple iPhone. The FBI wanted a backdoor into the encryption so they could decrypt anything. Or you're a network engineer, BSEC, I'm looking at you, and you set up a listening service on your network infrastructure so you can remote in from home on the weekend to reboot something because you don't want to have to come in. That's kind of a backdoor too, right? What they're talking about here is being able to poison a machine learning model in a way that is unknown by the people who are using the model. So very, very, very quickly, if you don't know how AI and machine learning works, you take a big, let me change this video feed here. You take a big data set, right? Training models, right? Like AI and machine learning is good at repeatable stuff, right? So you feed it a bunch of data and then you say, now, in the absence of any data, what would you do next, AI? And then the AI says, I would do this, right? Which is part of the... Okay. part of the reason that machine learning is interesting is because it will guess, but we've also seen how models can get polluted. We saw famously a model that was, I think Microsoft did it, like a Twitter bot or whatever. It got really racist and it got really unacceptable very quickly. What they're saying here finally is very, very interesting. It's a very, very clever attack. If we are beginning to rely on machine learning and AI to do more complicated tasks, and it does it 95% of the time, and then you can introduce a keyword or some hashtag or some act, like think of Manchurian Candidate, right? You have some way of activating this thing and have it do something that is different than what the group who is using it expects. And they kind of allude to an example here in the story of bank loans, right? So you have AI machine models decide whether or not I am qualified for a loan, or BSEC's qualified for a loan, or, Kimberly's qualified for a loan. Well, if say I have an agenda, like I don't want Hawaiians to get loans, or I don't want, or I want to be approved for a much higher loan, or I want my buddies to get loans or whatever. Like whatever my agenda is, I could kind of exploit the back door to get the machine model to do what it is I want, which no one would know any different because it's hidden, right? So clever idea. I'm going to have to say machine learning models are going to have to be kind of open source and trusted the same way that encryption is, because we don't want to, we don't trust encryption that isn't really analyzed or open source either.
Umbrella default SSH key allows theft of admin credentials. Cisco has released security updates to address a high-severity vulnerability in the Cisco Umbrella Virtual Appliance, VA, allowing unauthenticated attackers to steal admin credentials remotely. Fraser Hess of Pinnacle Assurance found the flaw, tracked as CVE 2022-20773, in the key-based SSH authentication mechanism of Cisco Umbrella, VA. Cisco Umbrella is a cloud-delivered security service used by over 24,000 organizations as DNS layer security against phishing, malware, and ransomware attacks, and uses these on-premise virtual machines as conditional DNS forwarders that record, encrypt, and authenticate DNS data. Cisco explains, quote, "This vulnerability is due to the presence of a static SSH host key. An attacker could exploit this vulnerability by performing a man-in-the-middle attack on an SSH connection to the Umbrella VA." End quote.
Okay. I mean, this is interesting, but you'd have to... Oh, I'm sorry, guys. This is interesting, but you'd have to do a lot to kind of compromise this. It says default SSH key allows theft, right? So that's not good, but this is more of a splashy headline than it is the reality. This SSH isn't enabled by default, first of all. Second of all, I've worked in an environment with Cisco Umbrella. You don't necessarily need a virtual appliance is part of your infrastructure to utilize this. So there's another whole subset. So this isn't like if you're just using Cisco Umbrella, which by the way is DNS security. Basically, that's what it does. It'll validate and check DNS queries before it allows it to go out, and it'll block from malicious infrastructure or whatever your web browsing policies are, right? You don't want gambling sites, you don't want porn sites, whatever. Cisco Umbrella can help you with that. If you are using Cisco Umbrella in your environment, you may want to check to see if you're involved with this. But like I said, there's a lot of custom stuff that needs to be implemented, including enabling SSH and having the virtual appliance before it even would become a viable attack on your infrastructure. And then on top of that, someone would have to get in between you and then steal that key. So it's whatever.
And now here's a word from our sponsor, IRO.com. Brokers' sales of U.S. military personnel data overseas stir national security fears. Justin Sherman, a fellow at the Atlantic Council's Cyber Statecraft Initiative and a cyber policy fellow at the Duke Tech Policy Lab, has been tracking and sounding an alarm over a largely unregulated data brokerage industry that poses a national security threat by advertising and selling information it has culled on military personnel. He said 3 large data brokerage companies, Axiom, LexisNexis, and Nielsen IQ, Sell data on current or former military personnel, specifically that includes family members, home addresses, and even real-time GPS locations. LexisNexis markets the fact that it can search an individual and identify whether they are active duty military, Sherman said. Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana plans to unveil legislation which will make it illegal for data brokers to sell military personnel data to adversarial nations, including China and Russia.
What? Okay. So check this out. Okay. Data brokers. Yes, we talked about it last week. In fact, if you did what's on your radar last week, data brokers was what was on my radar, especially because of that John Oliver piece on data brokers. They enrich data, they sell data. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, okay? And people are not doing much about it. We're saying here that it's a national security issue because U.S. military personnel data is getting sold through these data brokers. Now we need to implement legislation and regulation. Okay, I wholeheartedly agree. I don't like the idea that United States military personnel are having their data sold. But you know what else I don't like? Having my data sold. What the hell? Like why are we scoping this just to the military? If we have the capability to constrain, i.e. do what GDPR is basically doing, then why are we just constraining this to U.S. military? And I'll tell you why. My sound effect's not working. It's straight cash, homie. That's why. Because there's a lot of special interest, wealthy groups that make a lot of money off of selling data. And if you try to regulate the whole industry, those people with deep pockets are not going to be happy, and they're not going to invest in these political campaigns for re-election and stuff like that. This pisses me off, guys. Like, I get it. I love the story. I'm happy that the U.S. military, I think it's sketch. But like, what about law enforcement people? What about investigative journalists? Like, what about all these other people who would be targeted, right? And then just what about me being a general citizen? Okay, it's a little annoying. Whatever. The important thing is lawmakers are realizing that this data has real value and real consequences if sold, right? All right. Can I play a spicy sound effect? I wish my audio wasn't such a piece of this show. All right.
Hackers are exploiting Microsoft Exchange servers in ransomware spree. The Hive threat group is targeting vulnerable Microsoft Exchange servers to deploy ransomware. In new research published on April 19th by the Varonis forensics team, a recent ransomware incident has allowed the company to examine the group's tactics and procedures in depth. An unnamed customer's networks were infiltrated and the attack was complete in 72 hours. The intrusion began with the exploitation of Proxy Shell, a set of critical vulnerabilities in the Microsoft Exchange server patched by the vendor in 2021. These security flaws could lead to the remote full compromise of Exchange servers. Most email security...
Okay. Let me just look at this really quickly. Okay. All right. Couple things here. One, Hive is a ransomware as a service threat actor group. They are exploiting Microsoft Exchange servers. If you are running Microsoft in O365, right? If you have Microsoft, Exchange Online, or you use Microsoft Online Protection, those type of things. If your mail server is managed by Office 365, this does not apply to you. This is only if you're running a traditional on-prem Microsoft Exchange server. If you have lifted and shifted your Microsoft Exchange server to the cloud, but it's still a server that you're running, right? Like the traditional one, this could affect you. But guys, this story is, this may sell, but this story is a nothing story. Proxy Shell is a vulnerability right here, right? Proxy Shell. Proxy Shell is a vulnerability that came out a while ago, right? 2021. It was a big deal. This was one of the ones where there was like 4 days and people worked over the weekend to get it patched and all this stuff. This has been well documented. You should not be vulnerable to Proxy Shell at this point. And, so Hive is basically finding internet-facing proxy shell vulnerable Exchange servers and exploiting them and then deploying ransomware, right? I mean, that's why I'm saying this is a nothing story. Like, it sucks if you're an organization that got compromised by this, but like, you have everything going for you to not be a victim of this. So Hive hackers, they're taking advantage of a well-documented vulnerability that's like, I'm pretty sure that there's a well-established exploit for, right? So, okay, you know, patch your Exchange servers. That would be the key takeaway there.
Approaches fail to block common threats. An overwhelming number of security teams believe their email security systems to be ineffective against the most serious inbound threats, including ransomware. That's according to a survey of business customers using Microsoft 365 for email commissioned by Cyren, C-Y-R-E-N, and conducted by Osterman Research, which examined concerns with phishing, business email compromise, and ransomware threats. Protections against impersonation threats are viewed as least effective, followed by measures to detect and block mass-mailed phishing emails. Quote, security team managers are most concerned that current email security solutions do not block serious inbound threats, particularly
Okay, so let's walk this back for a second, okay? Okay, what's the population of this? Uh-oh. Hey, is my audio gone? Can you guys hear me? Oh boy. Oh boy. Is it back? So, hello, Tom Pike. Where are we at, boy? All right, cool. Thank you. So, really quick, just to walk this one back, I want to know what is the... If it's choppy, let me know, and I'll reboot my audio, Damon. Okay, hold on one second. Stay with me, guys. Wouldn't be a day ending in Y if my audio didn't... All right. Am I back? My audio, like my video went down too? Come on, man. What is going on here? Ugh, you gotta be kidding me with this. All good. Well, it looks like my video feed is jacked up. So, all right. I don't know what's going on, honestly, people. So, all right. I can't see anything. Like my feed is frozen. So I'm just gonna talk and we're gonna go for it. Okay, guys? This article says 89% of organizations experience one or more successful email breaches. 2 days ago, we talked on the show about how like 1/3 of 1% of emails result in compromise, and only 2/3 of that 1/3 of a percent, 2/3 of a percent of that 1/3 of a percent. I know it's a popsicle headache. It results in compromise, right? So then, you know, put that with a grain of salt, because on the other side, you're saying here, a full 89% of organizations experienced a successful email breach, right? So, you know, like let's talk about that. How big was the population sampled, right? Was it 10 people? So, or, you know, like what's 89%? 89% of what? And then I agree. We can have great security mail configurations and solutions and stuff like that, and some bad email will still get through. You know, this study was sponsored by Cyren and conducted by Osterman Research. So really quick, let's just see what Cyren makes. Enterprise email software. Okay, right? So of course, their angle, their bend is to make sure that email is seen as a real top problem, right? So just be mindful of that. Guys, we have one more story, but I literally can't hear or see anything, so I'm not sure if you guys are going to be able to hear or see it too. I'm gonna go for it. Let me know, mods.
Kraft Heinz signs up to Microsoft to lift it into the cloud. U.S. food behemoth Kraft Heinz has signed a multi-year agreement with Microsoft to shift much of its data center assets to Azure. The deal will also see the company's enterprise resource planning migrated to SAP on Microsoft's public cloud service. Kraft Heinz is referring to Azure as its, quote, preferred cloud platform, end quote. Its goals for the move include a reimagining of its day-to-day operations, enhanced customer experiences through real-time predictive analytics, and the creation of a more collaborative supply chain. It also includes the use of Azure Digital Twins, Microsoft's IoT take on creating a digital representation of a real-world environment. Kraft Heinz plans to use the technology to model its 34 owned manufacturing facilities in North America with a view to calculating the optimal product capacity and dealing with problems before they occur.
Interesting. Okay, so really quick, this story is interesting because Kraft Heinz is like, a Fortune 10 company, and they're going for Microsoft Azure, right? This is a huge client for Microsoft. This is huge money, right? Like, that's not surprising. I've been telling you guys for months, right? Like, Microsoft Azure, or Microsoft Office 365 is taking over the landscape, right? I used to say, if you want to get in cloud, check out AWS. I wholeheartedly believe if you want to get into cloud now and find work, get good at Azure and Office 365, because there's just so many people going there. This is also another reason why Microsoft Teams is starting to eclipse Zoom, because Microsoft Teams comes with Office 365, and because so many businesses are going into Microsoft Azure, they're getting it for free and they don't want to pay for two solutions. All right. Even though Microsoft Teams has its problems. The hidden gem in this is this Azure Digital Twin. When we talked with Rob Lee yesterday about manufacturing industrial control systems, he said, there's some aspects of cloud that are becoming a thing, but it's not exactly one-to-one mapping the way that IT has moved to cloud. OT is not really moving to cloud. Well, this Azure Digital Twin will allow you to basically replicate the OT, at least based on what I'm seeing, replicate the OT of your environment in Azure. And I'm assuming, well, I'd want to dig into this actually. This might even be on my radar next week. I want to dig into this because what is the benefit of that? I mean, do you do it so you can run simulations and test and do, A/B testing on different ideas? Or is it literally pumping telemetry from your on-prem OT up into the digital twin so you can have a visual kind of dashboard of what your OT looks like and its health and stuff like that? So really interesting. I plan on digging in a bit on this Azure Digital Twin. So stay tuned. That might be my radar item next week. Now, I don't know if you can hear the audio from Restream right now, because I certainly don't hear it, but that's okay. Real quick, guys, that's going to do it for our first things first this week. Whoops, let's do this. Okay. If you want to join us this Friday, today at 4 p.m., we will be continuing to do our show first, What's on Your Radar. And it's basically 3 senior expert analysts talking about something that caught their eye this week or very recently, and why it's important to them and what you can distill essentially from that for yourself. So this is our 3rd episode of What's on Your Radar. I've continued to refine it week over week. I'm open to constructive feedback, but from the people who have attended, they have enjoyed it. So I'm totally pumped about this format. It'll be myself, Eric Taylor, and Jacob Horn today on What's on Your Radar. So that's always good. Guys, much love. Dealing with, it's it's not uncommon for me to deal with some issues. I am a one-man band over here with mods. Thank you, mods. I don't want to say I'm not completely by myself. Guys, this has been First Things First. We will be doing 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the rest of the year up until August, right? The school semester has ended, and now it's 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with the occasional issue or the occasional impact the way like today was, right? But for the most part, you can bank on 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I really appreciate all of you. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and until